welcome to another episode of Rack and Roll Future-Proofing Your Warehouse. I'm Ashley Feldpausch, your host. Today we're talking about on-prem to SaaS and what's the real payoff. I'm excited to be joined by Tony Caprioli, Project Director, Product Development at Blue Yonder. Tony, thanks for joining me today. If you would, please introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about yourself and your background before we dive in.
Sure. Thanks, Ashley. So Tony Caprioli, VP of Product Management, focused on our warehousing solutions here at Blue Yonder. So I've been with Blue Yonder now for 26 years, and I spent my earlier years implementing our warehouse solutions for our customers. After that, I took a role in product development where I helped our teams build out the new features and functions. And now in product management, I look after our strategy, roadmap, and the overall build out of our warehouse management solution.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good work. And Blue Yonder's been around for a long time, and a lot of people know the name. So I'm glad to hear you're part of the process.
Yeah.
So we'll dive right into the questions. If you have more to add, please do. So when organizations move from on-prem to SaaS, what's the biggest shift they should be thinking about beyond just the technology that they have?
Sure. Yeah. So the biggest shift that really comes with this is that you go from really owning that system to you're now operating the capabilities of that system. So what do I mean by that? With the on-prem world, you own the environment yourself. You're spending tons of energy just keeping the technology current and secure. You're worried about the servers, your database, patching, doing upgrades, uptime, disaster recovery, all that stuff. And then on top of that, you have these large upgrades. You're doing them, once every 5 to 10 years. They're super painful. And let's face it, the upgrades, they're largely driven because your infrastructure versions are getting out of support, right? Your OS or DB or the WMS. It's not because the warehouse is knocking at your door saying, hey, change my process, right? You're really doing these upgrades out of necessity and not, opportunistically. And that's really, results in, freezing your capabilities from a standard product perspective, which results in modifications. And those modifications result in more painful upgrades. And it just becomes that endless cycle. So with SaaS, that kind of flips. So Blue Yonder now owns the running of the software, the always on, and it's always current. And your shift or role shifts really to now being that consumer of the capabilities. And what that means is that, because the WMS service is always staying current, you're getting these new value releases every 3 months, right? And every 3 months, you have to look at how are you going to, harvest this value. Ask yourself some questions. How am I going to evaluate the release and the value that it can bring to my business? How am I going to adopt those new capabilities? And then ultimately, how do I keep improving my operations, release after release? So SaaS doesn't necessarily remove the work. It just kind of changes where that work is taking place. So the big thing here that organizations need to treat this move is that it's really kind of like a business transformation and not just, that IT project. It's a change in how you operate and not just where that software lives.
That's a great perspective. And that growth factor is really the one that hits home. And I love that you mentioned about it being a business transformation, because I think, it can get categorized in that IT form, but really as a whole, everybody has to be in on it and believe in it. So once organizations make that shift, where do you typically see the most meaningful value realized after a SaaS transition? And where do organizations sometimes overestimate the benefits?
Yeah, so the most meaningful value that you get is really in the agility that that organization now receives because of this. We're delivering product at an unprecedented speed, and these organizations really have access to all that innovation. And so you're getting these new capabilities every 3 months. And just think about how fast AI has come into our everyday lives just in the last couple of years. Like Chat GPT seems crazy, but it was just released 3 years ago. And that first release compared to where we are today is, just remarkable, right? It's the tip of the iceberg of where we're even at today. So we're going to see rapid advancements in that AI space, and the things that we think are really cool today are going to be like child's play in just a year or two. So, what does that mean for our WMS, right? So AI has gotten extremely good at coding. Features that used to take our teams of developers, a month or two to develop, it's taking our developers a day or two. Like, it's crazy. So what does that mean for our customers is that, they're going to be getting these new features and capabilities that they can take advantage of every 3 months that are bringing some real good value. And just in the AI side, we've already brought to life, some really cool AI capabilities, but that space is moving so fast that, we're really just getting started. So the way that our users, use our system and interact with the WMS is changing quite rapidly. And make no mistake, like, if you're not at the edge of innovation, like, you're going to be left behind, and very quickly. So then when you look at the overestimation of benefits, I would say that this is really like, you're thinking that SaaS is just going to automatically be cheaper because you don't have to, worry about owning the system now. And that's absolutely true, right? You're not going to own the system, but there's a trade-off in that time investment, and it moves from, the system management to more of that change management, which, quite honestly, is way more important to our customers, right? They want to be focused on the operations and not worrying about, what server BIOS version they're at to prevent security issues, right? Their bread and butter is making their operations as powerful as possible. So, that really just allows your team to focus on what's important.
Yeah, those are really important discussions to have in your organization, but also to question these. This is a great conversation for questions to ask yourself before you get into these investments. And technology creates opportunity, but organizations still have to capitalize on it to make it work. Absolutely. So what role does change management, as we just mentioned, play in a successful SaaS transition, and where do organizations tend to underestimate the effort required?
Yeah, so this is key. And, I've obviously mentioned change management a couple times now. And the fact is that, all organizations, they want higher labor productivity. They want the higher throughput, better inventory accuracy, improved service levels. And, these are really all enabled by SaaS. And you're going to get new capabilities in each one of these areas, over time. But unless your organization is spending the time, actively reviewing what's coming in each release, you're assessing where your organization can benefit from these new features, but then ultimately adopting these capabilities, you're really never going to move the needle in improving your operations. So if you don't do that, you're just going to have that operational freeze, just as if you were on-prem and you don't upgrade for many years. So that's kind of a really big mind shift difference that you have to have. You can't really just treat the go live of your new SaaS WMS as the end game, right? Instead, that go live is really the beginning of your company's value realization of the product. And to do that successfully really takes a lot of effort. The other piece of the puzzle that you have to remember is that when you do get these new releases after 3 months, to adopt these releases, you're going to have 2 to 4 weeks. And when I say that to our customers and some folks out there, that literally scares the heck out of them, because they're thinking of these really big transformational upgrades that can take 6 to 12 months, and they're not thinking of these smaller incremental releases. But even with the smaller incremental releases, it's not trivial to just adopt them in 2 to 4 weeks. Like, you have to have a very strong automated testing strategy. You have to have a method for training your employees if you choose to adopt some of these new features, because you don't have to. You can stay the course, but if you do want to adopt, you have to provide some training. And there's, many other things that kind of go along with it. So change management is really that muscle that you have to build, but it doesn't mean you're done. You have to, constantly maintain it really indefinitely for the lifetime of your investment.
That makes a lot of sense. And I would have to agree that the go live is only part of the equation when it comes to these kinds of things. That change management and taking care of that as it goes down the road is important. So we hear a lot about the journey to cognitive or more intelligent supply chain operations. So how does moving to SaaS actually enable that journey?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So as a part of our product evolution, we decided that our new SaaS WMS is really going to be the beneficiary of all our new cognitive capabilities. So customers, they can still engage our professional services teams to build, these bespoke AI solutions for prior versions. But for our SaaS solution, this is where the standard product cognitive offerings are going to live. So and those are going to improve every release. Every 3 months, you're going to get, new capabilities there. So SaaS really becomes the enabler that gives you the access to these cognitive features. There really isn't that intelligence itself. Then, as for the journey, this doesn't have to be a cliff event, right? We're working to make the upgrade as frictionless as possible for our customers that are coming from these earlier versions of our WMS and even from our dispatcher WMS as well. We're building out, a rich set of tools that is significantly going to reduce that cost of upgrading. It's going to tackle things like integration, porting the majority of your customizations over automatically, report migration, and a couple other things. Ashley, I don't know if you were at Icon. Were you at Icon this year?
I was not this year.
No? Okay. Well, then you might have missed it, but we worked with a customer, and this is for our planning product, okay? But we talked to this customer before Icon. We said, hey, you know what? We want you to have this journey to go cognitive. And they're like, well, we're not sure. We're not sure if we want to go there. We're like, we'll do it. We'll do it this week. And they're like, oh, okay. And we're like, all right, we'll do it this week. And by the middle of the week, we'll give you your environment upgraded, ready to use. And our customer is like, no way. Like, no way that's happening, right? So they're super skeptical. So on Monday, we took their environment. On, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, we gave it back to them and said, all right, it's yours to play with. All your data has been upgraded. You have all their new capabilities. Why don't you guys take a look? So this customer took a look with his team, and they were really in shock and awe in terms of what they saw. It was their data set. It was upgraded. They're seeing already value very easily with what was upgraded. So as a part of this, we're like, all right, well, you got to come on stage now. You got to share your experiences. So they came on stage, they talked about their experience, and it was really, really a powerful message. So the cool thing is we're currently working on doing that for our WMS as well. The work's underway. We're working with some customers on this, and we're pretty excited to share, how we do in the near future with the industry.
I love the confidence. I love it. That's so cool. I'm glad it worked out. Yeah, I did obviously miss the presentation, but I'm sure it was very powerful.
Yeah.
The shift is amazing, and how fast things are moving. So very cool that you guys were able to show that. So last question, what's one mistake you consistently see from organizations that make this transition, and what would you recommend they do differently?
Yeah. So this is going to be in slight conflict with my previous answer. But the biggest mistake that we have is really, thinking of lifting and shifting, right, from where you currently are and just moving everything over. So when you do that, you're basically taking years of these legacy customizations and interfaces, workarounds, and you're bringing them right into the brand new system that you purchased. And, instead of, doing that, you should really be looking at modernizing, your processes, looking to adopt these new capabilities and technologies. But instead, you can basically just preserve this complexity You're carrying the technical debt, straight into that shiny new platform. And that can really kind of undermine this promise of SaaS where, it's always being current. And because of this, you're now having to include those customizations into your testing cycles for adopting these new releases. And really, you're spending a lot of time and energy doing that. And is it really, really needed, right? So the better principle here is to really, look to standardize and use standard product first, try and configure, with standard product second to achieve your goals. And then at the very lastly, try, to go through and do some customizations, but you really have to make sure that those customizations are going to earn its life cycle cost. Okay. So when you set out on your journey to cognitive, you really have to treat it as an opportunity to move closer to standard product by eliminating these customizations as much as you can. So our new cognitive solutions like slotting, resource orchestration, and others, they really give you that chance to consume the latest technology and become that leader in the space. And I come up with, this analogy. It's like, why would you, keep rowing the boat when you now are equipped with like this jet engine, right? It just doesn't make sense. So, this is a super exciting time. Super excited to be a part of it and work with our customers to make this journey.
Those are all great takeaways, and hopefully everybody listening has, like I said, the questions to ask before they dive into things like this, but also a little bit of knowledge to take with them. So that wraps it up for us today. Thank you so much, Tony, for joining me today and giving your thoughts. We hope you found today's discussion on moving from on-prem to SaaS and maximizing the value of that transition helpful. If you have any questions or would like to learn more, please feel free to reach out. Our contact information is provided in the description below. Until next time, stay innovative and keep future-proofing your warehouse. Goodbye.